Hello and good evening, family and friends. It is another day in the Mile High City. It's your girl Shay J with CTN Media, where we're changing the narrative in media. And yes, you are tuned into an exclusive interview that's happening right now, live time. So you know what that means. I need you to share this out on your networks right now. Yes, share this out. This is not just for me, it's for you, it's for our community. Share this out, create a watch party. And then if you haven't went over and subscribed at YouTube, what are you waiting for? Go on over to CTN Media on YouTube, where we're changing the narrative and we're doing it with you. Today, it was so necessary to get this interview in. At first, we didn't think we were going to make it happen, but here at CTN Media, we're all about controlling the narrative, changing the narrative, cultivating the narrative, and in that true light, this conversation had to take place, and it had to take place on today. So thank you for joining us. Again, I'm your host, Shay J. Do me a favor, share this out on your network. Keep supporting independent Black media. This show has been powered by the Black Business Initiative, where we're helping Black entrepreneurs start, scale, and grow. If you want to learn more about the Black Business Initiative, check us out at bbiprofessionals.com. We welcome you and thank you. Today, I'm not alone. No. I know you see two guests. You're like, Shay, who are they? What's going on? Do you have a new co-host? Not so much. It's an interview, guys. So today I have joining me. He is the poet right out of Aurora, Colorado, the National Poetry Slam champion, the TEDx speaker and director of Your Writing Counts, a youth poetry program that our children need throughout the metro area right here with over 200,000 students annually. He is the Lynching Memorial Project Essay Contest co-liaison, the one and only Jovan. What's up? Welcome.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I feel like a boxer or something like right now. Like, let's go.
That's how they bring you up so they know it's serious. Like, oh, he's a heavyweight in the game. If you guys haven't checked him out, make sure you check out his poetry. And I'll have him put in his links for his social media so you can follow him on his amazing journey. But he's not alone today. No. He has a co-host with him. And this is my first time meeting her, but I'm excited because she's a graduate out of the University of Michigan. She's also on the Memorial Project Essay Contest, a co-liaison. She has been a graduate since 2017, and now she's in the community doing the work. She's no stranger to making sure that we change the narrative. The one and only Montanta Stevenson, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being here. We're so excited to have you both here today. Thank you for joining us. I just want to give some love to Miss Rosemary, who made it possible that we all connected. We have to give the queen some love, right? She is phenomenal. If you don't know about Rosemary, she is making moves. She is the president of the NAACP Colorado, Montana, and Wyoming State Conference, a powerhouse in her own right. And what I love most is she's always connecting the dots, always networking, and always making sure she's doing it for the community and for the culture. So, Miss Rosemary, we salute you and we say thank you for making this all possible.
Yeah, that is real.
Yeah, she's dope, right? She's amazing. It was crazy as I started looking into the project. There's some heavy stuff in here, guys. There's some heavy stuff. And, normally on my other show, I do this thing called a trigger alert. And I feel like this show might need a trigger alert because I don't think we're aware of some of the things that are happening right here in our own city. And so I'm humbled to be a part of bringing this to our community and our culture, to be able to have this conversation. And I think it's something that's been hid for far too long and what's happening right here in Denver. One of my favorite things, and you guys have it on your website, and it's one of my favorite quotes, and it's, "The way to right wrongs is to turn the light to the truth upon them," from Ida B. Wells. And as we start turning the light of truth, we have to really talk about what's happening. It's not always far, but what's happening right here. Lynching, there have been lawless acts of terrorism. They disregard people's justice. It happens from mobs to murderers. They take laws into their own hands by killing victims accused of crimes. So they decide before they're found guilty, they lynch them, they hang them, they shoot them, they beat them, they burn them. And the crazy thing has happened right here in Colorado. I say thank you for even bringing this forward. A lot of this I feel like has not been talked about enough. So if you guys could just tell me a little bit about what this mission is and why you started this, the lynching for the Colorado Memorial. Why did this start? What is this about? And how did you get involved? Jovan.
I can go first. Yeah. Um, so I found out about this through a Westward article that was published a couple years ago, and that brought me. As soon as I read about it, I have a background in history. That's what my degree's in, and I've thought about this for a long time. That we try so hard to get over this history, and we need to get under this history.
Mm,
And so once I kind of saw this mission and call to action, and then caught word of Preston's story, that brought me in touch with Anthony Suggs, who at that time was partnered with the Episcopal Church, and really was kind of a huge force behind this project. And then that's when I sort of got caught up to speed over what was going on. That this was an extension of a call to action by EJI for states to go dig into their statewide lynching history, and
mm.
that in that call to action, they focused in on the narrative of Preston John Porter Jr. and wanted to figure out the best way to tell his story. And I myself, as serving as a poet laureate, am very well aware of how poems can impact ceremonies and how important ceremonious poetry can be. So once I got caught up to speed and learned that there was going to be a memorial for Preston in Lyman, Colorado, I decided that I wanted to be a part of that immediately and began getting into my notebook and constructing a poem for them. And then as things happen in this communal world, once you step in, you're in. So I became a part of the team, which has now grown out into this essay contest, which has brought me into a great workspace with Montana, where the both of us are trying to also get students invested into the same movement.
Man, before we talk about this essay contest, which, by the way, I've been publishing every Wednesday on our weekly resource report. So those of you who don't know, we do a weekly resource report for the culture every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, where we're just giving out resources nationwide, what's going on, how you can be a part of it. And I'm excited to talk about the essay contest. I'm digging a little bit into the lynching. I wasn't even aware of really the history. And they said, there's been a lynching of 6,500 Black people committed in the United States from 1865 to 1950. 7 Black people were victims of racial terror and lynching right here in Colorado. Montana, when you hear those statistics, was that a big part of you jumping on this project? What was your why for this?
Yeah, I visited Montgomery, Alabama a couple of years ago. I'm from Maryland originally, and I was moving to Colorado and took a southern route, and visited the Equal Justice Initiative and learned about those 6,500 people who had been, extrajudicially killed, and how in many cases, people don't know it happened. Nobody who was involved in perpetrating it is really ever been held accountable in a lot of cases. And I just got interested in how could I get involved in, making that history known in Colorado when I got here, and I found out there was a group already working on it. So that's how I got involved. It's pretty horrifying. And also I think really just important for people to know that this happened. And Preston's story is just hard to hear because he was 15 years old, and he's just so young. And it's
I want to talk about that. I want to definitely set the stage because, being from Colorado, and you would think something like this would be at the forefront of a lot of conversation, especially right here in the culture, especially even as we're going into election season. A lot of things like this come up, and especially when we're dealing with the racial injustice that we are in this moment in time. When we talk about Preston, on November 16, 1900, a large white mob lynched a 15-year-old African-American teenager named Preston John Porter Jr. He was burned to death near Lyman, Colorado, and Lincoln County. Tell us a little bit about what you guys have learned from this, just really digging into the history of Preston John Jr., just 15 years old, lynched and burned.
Well, I really think you have to take it on and think about both sides. I mean, for one side, to think about how much work went into the capture and corruption to get this young man in the position that they got him in. is unbelievable. When I had to spend time trying to construct a poem about what stood out to me, I mean, like we have this conversation in Colorado all the time about like, well, how many Black folks are there? So for me to even think about like some Black folks being out in Lyman in 1900 is another thing in itself. And so, just like many tales we've seen, some white terror is caused, whether it's a murder or a rape, and then all of a sudden there is a manhunt for this person, and then that's where this story really begins. But I think it's super important as we think about this and think about this whole trail of time where Preston's then, I don't know if his father is trying to flee with him and his brother to try to get them out of the focus eye of this crime. But the second that they get here, then this arrest happens, and then this conviction happens, and then this release happens to send Preston back here with the knowledge that like coming back to Lyman from Denver, or back to I believe it's Hugo technically from Denver, that this is going to be his penultimate move. And I don't know in my head if those folks were super aware, who released him, of just how grim things were. But at least when you learn about the Sand Creek massacre and you learn about the way dealings were done out here, it's not shocking. But to think that all of a sudden then folks got invited from Southern Colorado, from Central Colorado, to get here by way of train to witness this spectacle, the process of what it would take even in modern time, if all three of us went out there to try to erect a railroad tie, to actually unearth it, erect it, and then create the process to bind someone to it, and then the process to build a fortress around it and ignite it, watch the process fail midway through, and then to reignite it to make sure that the process gets done all the way. The sinister identity of these types of acts, they have to be known about in order for us to get a full pictorial of the Black experience inside of this country. We often try to simplify it to slavery. That's one of our things that we try to do, just to work, right? And if it's somebody working, it doesn't seem as inappropriate or as their property, and that should be condemned inside of itself. But when you think of the actual sinister creativity that went into cultivating an event for this kid, who was just
15 years old.
Who in some of the reports we have read, who is also in some regards special needs.
Yes.
It is so hard he's the perfect victim. Preston was the perfect victim. All the things were in play for someone who would be voiceless, non-advocated, and apparently, adulted in a way that that conviction could be carried out that way. And when I was working on writing the poem that I wrote, it had me thinking about one of the big questions in the poem is, Preston, did you get to know your song before it was taken from you? Were you aware of what your existence was before it was taken from you? And I don't know, the more you kind of get into this story, Shay, you didn't get to see what the folks at Lyman was looking like when they had to wrangle with this story, that this is like a real, in their historical district, at their museum, to watch them have to come face to face with the reality. I cannot remember this poor woman's name, but bless her heart, and thank you so much for letting us have the space to come into the Lyman Historical Museum. But this place that's celebrating the efforts post Dust Bowl, the efforts of the homesteaders, and all this other stuff, again, just worked their absolute tail off to make sure that this narrative wasn't known. I mean, a lot of things, this narrative made national news. This narrative
and this is crazy. Jovan, you say that, and that was a crazy part for me. This was a way, the headlines were in Los Angeles, huge. Kansas, huge. Colorado, it was a little bit more on the hush. Why do you think that was, and how did that happen like that?
I don't know. I think that we look at whatever the 6,500 number is that was being tossed around, and it's hard for me to believe that it's not like double that. It's hard for me to not believe that this type, to be attached to this type of grim nature, is not something that he wants. This is what I've always believed, like why the Klan members wore hoods, is because of the ability to detach, right? From the evil. And I think that this case is not separated from that.
Oh my God, I agree. For those of you just joining us, Preston John Porter Jr., just 15 years old, was lynched, burned right here in Colorado. And he was interrogated, him and his family, about raping a young white girl, murdering and raping a young white farm girl named Louise Frost. And so when they were questioned about it, his family adamantly said no, over and over again. And like you said, he was the perfect victim at 15. He was the one that was really tried for this, and the one they put in the sweatbox, and the one that they kept trying to get something out of him. Montana, when you start digging into the story, what caught you most as a surprise or just affected you the most?
I think the fact that he was so young, like the idea of him being held and tortured essentially by the Denver sheriff to coerce a confession. Oh, and then they released him to Lincoln County, I guess that town Jovan had mentioned, where he would be formally tried or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think they had to know that he was likely to be pulled off the train. And the one thing he asked for was a Bible. And there's a picture of him, or a sketch of him, like sitting with this sheriff on the train, like holding his Bible. And it's really heart-wrenching. And it's just like, how could you believe this person did this? And whether or not he did it is also irrelevant, because he was completely denied any kind of due process, real due process, which is like the other piece of all of this. And so many of these events where people are, they are killed without any kind of they're denied their constitutional right to a trial. And it's just, but the him holding the Bible is just, really.
And I think about that, and then when you start really digging into the history, one thing that hit me is that 5 years old, this young man was hit with a rock in his head. So they already said that he might have had some developmental disabilities. And so you take someone like that, it has to remind me of something we're doing with right now, Elijah McClain. It puts me in the mindset of that, someone that you knew that, had some more special needs, and we're doing things. And here we are in 2020, and we're still fighting for justice. Jovan, when you think about this fight for justice in 2020, where do you draw hope from?
I don't think it's, for me personally, if I'm being completely honest, it's never been harder to draw hope than it has been as of recent.
I'm with you.
I think that I had wondered, following George Floyd, like at what point in time in my father's life did he realize that the justice that he sought was not going to take place. Ooh. Right? And the hollowness that kind of hit with that, and hit for a while, as a person who works with kids, who really, 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 believes in their power of impact. It has been a real challenge to sort of navigate where you can get a handhold to have an effect, particularly as we're sitting in the most polarized way that I've at least seen the environment around me, where, folks are being at high levels, are being asked questions around their belief of systemic racism, and are actively carrying that out, and are actively a very viable contender to lead our so-called free world. So it is a challenge. It is a challenge when you bring up what you just brought up with Elijah and just so many of these young people who, and forgive me, it's just so hard, but I just feel like they lacked advocacy.
Yeah.
And were put in positions that they couldn't, that their mama couldn't come run out, that their family couldn't come run out. And all I think about is Elijah's little body, Preston's charred body, and the family not being able to take it to its right place. If anything we're owed is that, and that's the bare minimum, the barest of minimums. And so, you know, I think for me, this is why a project like this is so important.
Yeah.
Because again, you know, you have to get a well-rounded nature of like, I tell a lot of, I'm a wrestling coach. I tell my athletes this all the time. Today is yesterday. You know what I mean? Like we have to hustle right now. Like we do not have time. And that's kind of where I feel like we're personally at right now, is like we got to get these stories out. We got to boost awareness. We got to anchor into the spaces where, I think for me, like if my lasting legacy of a person would be to just do this my whole life, I think this would be the right way to do it. Make sure that history is being monitored and honestly enforced in a way that people have to recognize it. And the way that this project, the folks on this project, Shay J, the folks are so committed to this one story right now, like this one story, when we know there's a whole host of many inside this state. We are pouring our whole energy just to make sure not only that we're doing justice for Preston, but we're making sure that we're locking his story into time, and hopes and praise that when this gets picked up, you know, by somebody walking around seeing whatever placard they see or whatever recognition they see, that they say, wow, okay, I've got a job to do. I've got a place to keep, and this is my duty. So,
man, for those of you just now tuning in, I need you to share this out on your network. Thank you. Shout out to everybody on this watch party. I see you guys over here on this side. I see you guys on YouTube. I see you on Facebook. I see you guys tuning in from all different areas. We appreciate it, and I just want you to share this out on your network, because it's important that we have conversations like these. This is why we do what we do here at CTN Media, where we're changing the narrative in media. It's these conversations that mass and that, you know, big media, they don't cover these things. They don't talk about this. That's why it's important that you support independent Black media. If you haven't went over and subscribed on YouTube, we need your numbers. We need your engagement. It counts and it matters, because we're powered by you. And this is how we continue to have these type of conversations. When we talk about this project moving forward for Preston Porter Jr., what does it look like to start to get justice? And what does it look like for people to get involved? How can they help? What do you need? How can we be a part of this?
What are your thoughts, Montana?
Well, one thought is we are getting a historical marker that describes Preston's story installed in Creekfront Park in Denver. It should be installed later this month, and we are hosting a virtual event. It'll be live streamed on our website on November 14th at 2 p.m. So we would love for folks to tune in and learn more about his story and the work the coalition has been doing. So that's one thing.
November 14th at 2 p.m. And make sure you guys send me that information. We're going to make sure we keep putting that out, because it's important that you tune into this. And it's so important that we know our history so we can know where we're going. When you look at a project like this in this big scope of things, how do you break this down into getting justice? What do you do? It seems like so much, how do you move forward? What does this look like? And the people you have on this board I'm looking at are phenomenal. I mean, you have some heavy hitters that are really taking part in this. So what are your next steps?
Well, it's kind of crazy. I mean, you've really caught us kind of on our back leg. It kind of feels like the last baton has kind of been handed, in my own opinion.
Yeah.
This ceremony for the placard is really going to kind of, at least wrap up the immediate work that we've done over the past couple of years with this project. And then it seems like the essay contest that we're working on will be sort of the final installation of that. I think for me, so, and so I don't mean to sound so short, but those are the justice principles there, is that, this permanent historical piece is sort of being created. Now we are, you don't get a board like this together without a bunch of dreamers. And so the reality of it is like, we could probably keep pressing hard to figure out some type of Preston Porter Day. We're thinking about ideas of helping leading, kind of a pilgrimage or a homage down to Montgomery and some sort for us. And then for me personally, my ultimate hope is that we keep inspiring coalitions, and the work that we've done can be a base for other coalitions to keep telling these stories around the state. So that would be my overall.
That's huge, Jovan. Those of you out there, I hope that this gives you just a glimpse of hope, a piece of don't stop fighting. Don't stop fighting for justice. Don't stop fighting for your stories to be told. And everyone has a story, and I think it deserves to be heard. It deserves to be told, and the truth deserves to come out as well. And so I hope that this gives somebody, I know we're fighting right here, in the Aurora category, everybody's fighting right now for Elijah McClain. And as, hope starts to dwindle, a little bit of hope is sparked. And these moments like here, when you're talking about getting historical markers, these are the moments that we wait for. These are the moments that we pray for. And like you said, it doesn't take a day or a week. It takes years to get here. So your hard work has not gone unnoticed. And we say thank you for fighting this fight. Please tell them about this amazing essay contest that is out here for racial justice. I'm so excited about this. Please let them know about it.
Get it, Montana, get it.
Get it.
So the essay contest is open to all Denver public high school students. You are asked to write an 800 to 1,000 word essay on a topic related to racial justice. Basically, you pick from, it's not simple. It's easy to do. I'm sure it will be hard to write, but we have a wide range of topics themes you can pick from, essentially. Like you can go and learn about racial terror lynching or slavery if you want to go, super far back in history. You can learn about voter suppression. You can, pick from a wide range of themes, and then you pick an event that's related to that theme, a historical event, do some research on it, and then answer this question, which is, how does the history of racial injustice help to explain present day injustices in our society? And how can this history be overcome in order to change the challenges our nation faces today? So use that event to kind of inform that you research your response to that question. And 800 to 1,000 words.
You got to be in DPS. You got to be a high school student, right?
Yep.
This is a great way to really get in touch too with some emotions. I think that sometimes students right now are really bearing. I feel like they're going through so many things. They don't have a lot of outlets. Jovan, how important is it? You work with students all the time. How important is it for them to express themselves? And what type of opportunity do you think this is for them to be involved in this essay contest?
Well, you get dough if you win this contest, right? Like, there's some real incentive. But as far as the exploration of it goes, we have so much cool support right now. Like Denver Public Libraries has really extended themselves to assist in the process of doing some of that historical research, because the events that that the project is trying to steer students towards are local based injustices. So for some of those, very similar to Preston Porter, if you go deep into your search, you're probably going to pull a kernel that nobody's unearthed in a really long time. And so there's a really beautiful research aspect to this, which in my own hopes can inspire a lot of young researchers to kind of understand that, that top story is not the only story, that you have to dig a little bit deeper to get that next one. I would also say, as you were just mentioning, for the catharsis, right? For the catharsis piece, we have all sorts of supports in play with the way we're setting up our webinars to assist with that catharsis, because this is a tight essay. It's airtight. It's a grand question for a very small amount of words to sort of navigate that. So we want students to be able to find their personality in it. How do I do that historical research? How do how do I also figure out how to be inclusionary to my community and things of that sort? And then how do we figure out as a team and a coalition how to support them through the editing process to make sure that they put forth the best product possible? And anything I've learned as a creative is that regardless of whether I win or not, if I put forth a piece of art that I am really, really proud of, that all of the best channels of filtration have went through, then that thing's going to stand by me for a long, long time.
Yes.
I mean, I can think of stuff from elementary school I ain't forgotten.
You too?
You know what I mean? Like, that's real. So we're
No, I'm serious about that too. I have a poem up in my elementary school. They said it was never going anywhere. I'm gonna go check and see if it's still there. Because when I went like 10 years ago, it was still there. And I was like, see, this was good. This was really good. I wrote it about my mama, so you know it was serious. I was calling the apple in my eye, all this stuff. But it's real. Like when you really get in touch with your artist side and you let some things out, whether you win or lose, it's a win. It's an absolute win. And then you guys have scholarships. You give me like $5,000 away in scholarships. That's a win. Tell them to go sign up. Where do they go sign up at? How do they get involved? Come on, DPS students. I want to go right now.
So we have our website. I hope it's up on the screen, coloradolynchingmemorial.org. And we have a whole page about the essay contest. And on there, you'll find a link to another website, which is the actual website where there's all the information on how to enter the contest. And then we are, if you're on our website, we're hosting webinars. We have 4 of them. 2 have already happened, but you can see the replays of them. And then Jovan's hosting one tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. And one on November 5th at 4:30 p.m. Tomorrow is about personalizing the essay to you, and the one on November 5th is on editing. And then we're also doing a rough draft submission period, which again, that information's on the website as well. If you want to submit your draft wherever you are in the process, and you can get feedback. So we're really trying to, support students through this process.
Look, students, you don't have to go about this alone. Parents, if you're at home, this is your chance to get your students involved and really being a part of not only learning about history, but really making our future better. I think when we dig in, we have students do the work. There's nothing like the voices of our young. There's nothing like the voices of them really figuring out where they come from, who they are, and the history that they're a part of. So please get your students involved. I'm asking you right now from CTN Network, let's change the narrative. Let's make sure our students are a part of what it looks like to really get involved with history and really to be a part of something. This could be, this is groundbreaking. I love that it's happening right here in Colorado too. DPS right here in Colorado. This is something for your students to be a part of. And if you don't have a student, somebody you know has a student in DPS. For all my Colorado watchers, listeners, and followers. So share this out on your network right now. Get them involved. Again, if you need more information, you can check out the website. It's on your screen right now at coloradolynchingmemorial.org. Check out the website if you need more information, and they're here to help guide your student through this process so they're not alone during this. As you're moving forward with this, with your whole process and your memorial marker, will there be more information coming out? Is there a flyer that we can share? How can we make sure we get this out as many ways as possible? I really want to make sure people are there on November 14th.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that we have a really, really active team right now that is curating. We all kind of have our duties, if that makes sense, on our team. And so that's not primarily Montana-anized, our duty, but those materials do exist. They are present. And I am unsure of the distribution. What is your knowledge base there in Montana?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but we will find out, and we will get you a flyer and the information so you could share it.
That works out perfect. That's right, CC. And we'll make sure you guys get it. When I get it, you get it. You know how we do. We'll make sure we keep it for the community. You guys are really creating a new legacy of racial justice and equity. Thank you for shining the light on the truth of Colorado's history with white supremacy and racial terror. We appreciate you really shining this light. As we begin to wrap up, are there any last things for our audience? Anything that you feel like they need to know, be a part of? There's so much going on. And for me, just hearing about this 15-year-old young man's life taken right here in my own hometown, and not even really being a part of Preston Porter Jr.'s, knowing his history is huge in itself. So thank you for bringing that to light. What else would you like our audience to know? Montana, I'll start with you.
I think another thing is to take a look at the Equal Justice Initiative. They're an amazing organization in Montgomery, Alabama, and they started this work of creating, of documenting lynchings and then creating these community coalitions, and this remembrance process. So I think checking out their work and what they've done. There's also a movie about Brian Stevenson, who founded it, Just Mercy. So it's kind of a pretty good movie if you're interested.
Right. If you feel like going through all that, it is great. Sometimes I can't do all that, but it absolutely. Jovan, you've been out here doing the work, and thank you for being there for our students, our youth. It's so important that we have men like you leading in this, as you lead this next brand of racial injustice and making sure that it gets out here to our community. What else is it that you want our community to know? What can we share with them?
I just think it's super important to know that we don't have to just nip at racial injustice at the protest. Like, there's professional levels that you can get to have a major effect. And I really do think I extend off of Montana. That's really where EJI comes into the forefront of the conversation. And that's why I think, getting invested in a project like this can really do some major things for the mind as far as its investigation, to know that I can have some power from a standpoint of what I choose to put my career force into to make a difference. And I think as a young person, I didn't even know what that was. When I was in high school, I didn't know what that would be. And even as an adult, it's been a kind of just like this project. I'm just taking on whatever's in front of me. But this is this is the starting point here where we can really start figuring out some ways, especially in a state that I think believes that it's outside of the conversation of racism often, that it's not a thing that has impact here. And the way I tell my kids, I don't care what justice you're working for, you work for that justice, right? You know what I mean? And I think that this is the type of movement to get down with. So as we think about this, even from a parental standpoint or from a student out there standpoint, it's like, why not me? Why can't I be the one to sort of navigate this or ask the questions to get invested and get interested? And I think the way that this process is set up has been intentionally done by EJI to have students doing the historical research, to want to get them more invested into doing exactly what your network is trying to do, which is control, challenge, and cultivate the narrative. And that's the goal, I think, of everything here.
And that's so huge. And I love that you said that there's ways to be involved with activism that actually can make direct change. And I can tell everybody all the time, let's work on changing the policy. Let's change the policy. I think it's so important that we get to the root of these things. Montana, Jovan, are you voting?
Oh,
of course.
I'm voting tomorrow. I got my
let me see it. Let me prove it. I need proof.
Where's my
I don't have my ballot right in front of me.
She didn't say she was going to do this. We don't know where our ballot's at. What are you
I'm voting because it's so easy in Colorado. It's so easy. Right? They mail it to you. You can drop it off. You can show up in person. You can mail it back. It is so easy.
I like it. Jovan said I'm voting tomorrow.
I'm going to drop it off tomorrow. I already made my vote.
Yes. I love it. I'm not going to lie. I'm that person that literally waits the last day to vote. But I tell people all the time, you have to extremely earn my vote, and you might make me mad the day before. So I have to really wait until the last day to make sure that I'm still positive. And then I do it live on air as well. So make sure that in case anybody has any questions for my last minute voters, I got your back. You guys, please tell the people out there how important it is to go and vote and to be a part of this vote, because this vote absolutely matters.
It does matter. I think it could be the most important election in my lifetime for sure. So yes, please vote. Please vote. Please vote.
Please vote.
I mean, there wouldn't be an election day if it wasn't for the suffering of Black folks. The reality of that is that, this has been a privilege, a human right that has been fought to participate in. And we deserve to be active participants in our fate. And I think this is just the starting point, the the pre-kit,
Pre-K.
the pre-kit, and then you get deeper. But go get your pre-kit.
Go get your pre-K.
You earned it.
You did. You earned it. Someone earned it. It's your right. It's your duty. Please go vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but I'm going to tell you to go vote. Share this out on your network. You can catch a replay at CTN Media on YouTube. They're creating a new legacy in racial justice. We appreciate you. The Colorado Lynching Memorial Project. Please find out more. Go to www.coloradolynchingmemorial.org. Find out more. Be a part of it. Don't just sit back. Don't wait for someone else to do the work. Community, tribe. Let's be a part of the change. Remember, your voice matters. Your voice counts. We want to make sure we're always controlling the narrative. We have the power. You have the power. My guy, my girl, thank you guys for coming and joining me today. Such important issues, and we can't wait to be there and support on March 14th. Whether you're tuning in virtual, you got to share this with somebody else. Whether you already knew about Preston Porter Jr., I didn't know, but share this information out. It's important that we share our information. 15-year-old African-American teenager was lynched and burned right here in Lyman, Colorado. We've got to share out the information. We have to change the history. We are part of what it looks like. Remember, the more you know about the past, the better prepared you are for the future. Period, point blank. I'm your host, Shay J. You're on CTN Media. Thank you, Jovan in Montana, for joining me. Make sure you check them out again, the Colorado Lynching Memorial Project. We love you guys. Peace and love. Again, make sure you change the narrative.
Thanks so much for having us.
Have a good one, y'all. Vote.
Vote. Go vote now. Don't wait like me.